Okay, guys, I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay, so we were talking about the erector pili muscle in the skin. So these are smooth muscle cells associated with hair, okay? Now, when this contracts, when this muscle contracts, it changes the position of hair. And I'm just abbreviating M for muscle. So an example of this is goosebumps, okay? When do you get goosebumps? Cold, okay, cold temperature, and fear, okay? So, and this is an exam question, so you need to know this, okay? So what causes goosebumps? The contraction of the erector pili muscle, okay? And you can see that in the picture in figure 3.3. You'll see you'll see where the erector pili muscle is and how it's attached to the hair gland, the hair follicle, and you can take a look at that. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the epidermal layers of the skin. Okay. So remember we said the epidermal layers, the epidermis of the skin is the most superficial layer of the skin. Well, we're gonna talk about epidermal layers. Okay, and we are going to talk about it. It's from superficial to deep is the way we're gonna label this. Now, what I'm gonna recommend is that you start memorizing this now because there are, we have 5 layers and you will need to know about each one of them because all of them will be on the test. So if you start learning it now, it'll be helpful because this is not something you're gonna be able to cram and be able to remember it properly. Okay, now, stratum corneum. Okay, so this is the most superficial layer. So all of them start with the word stratum, okay? So first we have stratum corneum, and this is the most superficial layer. It is composed of 25 to 30 layers of dead keratinized cells. And this eventually flakes off. We talked about how, the skin kind of sheds and peels to get new skin. So this eventually flakes off, this layer. And this flaking off is known as desquamation. Okay. The second layer the next one down is stratum lucidum. Now this layer, you will see mainly, it's like the thick skin of palms and soles that you see, okay? One thing about this you need to know, it's not present in thin skin, this layer. You will need to know this. So where is it present? It's present in thick skin of palms and soles. So once cells push into this layer of the skin, it is considered dead. Okay. The next layer is stratum granulosum. Now, this is in this layer. Let's see, there's a. So if you look at page, if you look on page 75, okay, I'll put up here, page 75, figure 3.4. This will help you understand a little bit more as we discuss, because you can see the layers of skin on there, and that'll be a lot more helpful. Okay, so the stratum granulosum, this layer is where you see a change in the skin cells from the base. And you'll need the picture to see what I'm talking about. This layer, by the second layer, they are completely dead. But in this layer is when the skin cells begin to die. And this is the layer that produces the keratin. Obviously, you need to know these. These are, what I'm telling you now are like the most important points for each skin layer. Obviously, there's much more to know, but these are the most important that you need to know. Okay, and these will all be on the test. So, the next two layers, okay, that we're going to talk about, the stratum spinosum and the stratum basale, they both give the color of the skin, okay? So we'll talk about stratum spinosum first. And if you look at the picture, the stratum spinosum is several cells thick, okay? Also, mitosis occurs here. Okay. And then, I'm going to keep these in the same color just so you know that they're the ones producing the color of skin. So the very last one is the stratum basale. Here, cells undergo constant mitosis. Okay, and here at the very base, it's one cell thick. It's not multiple cells. The layer is one cell thick. Okay, now these two determine the color of the skin. Now, how do we determine the color of the skin? With something called, these cells are called melanocytes. Okay, and melanin. That's actually what gives pigment to the skin. Okay, now there's two types of pigment. Okay, one is eumelanin, and the other one is pheomelanin. Now, So, remember we talked about the Golgi apparatus and the secretory vesicle? Well, that's where this is made. It's made in the secretory, in the Golgi apparatus, and it's packaged into the secretory vesicles, okay? Now, these vesicles then move outward into the processes of the cells, and especially the stratum basale cells and the stratum spinosum cells. And what they do is they engage and chomp up the melanin processes, okay? So what it basically does is these layers eat up the melanocytes and the melanin, and they develop the color, okay? That's basically how they do that. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the one thing you have to know about eumelanin and, okay, my dog is back. You gotta move. The eumelanin is dark, okay? And the pheomelanin produces a red tint. Okay, if you read the book, you'll get a lot more information on this, more than what I'm going to be having the time to go over. Now, one thing you need to know is everybody has about approximately the same number of melanocytes, okay? So, but these melanocytes have to make the melanin, and everybody's ability of their melanocytes to make melanin is different, and that's what determines our skin color, okay? What affects that? It's many things, like genetics, hormones, the amount of sunlight you're exposed. If you look at it, why are there darker skinned people closer to the equator? Because they have more sun exposure. So if you look at Africa, India, just around those countries around there, if you look at South America, you know, people are more tanned and more colored. Why? Because they're closer to the sun and they have increased melanin in their skin. And what does melanin do? It actually protects, the more melanin you have, the more it protects you from getting sunburn. It's not that they cannot get sunburn, they can, but it's a protective factor and a protective mechanism of the skin, okay? So the more lighter the skin color, they make those people's melanocytes are making less melanin, okay? Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about melanocytes. I'm going to go over what I just said a little bit. So what do melanocytes do? They produce melanin. And then they package it into vesicles via the Golgi apparatus. And then, okay, so where into the processes and into the 5th and 6th layer of the cells. Now, what happens from here? The cells eat up the melanin in the vesicles. And this process is known as phagocytosis. Okay, and by this process, the 5th and 6th layers develop color. Now, if you think about skin color, right? People more in the US and people with lighter skin sit out in the sun to get a suntan to get darker. Why? Because that way their melanin increases, causing them to have a suntan. If you look on the other side of the world, a lot of these countries that have darker skinned people, they have so many cosmetics and lotions and creams trying to make their skin lighter. So truly, the grass is always greener on the other side. People with curly hair want straight hair. People with straight hair want curly hair. Same thing with skin color. So but it all amounts to the same thing here in regard to skin. It depends how much melanin is there. And a person of light skin is never going to get as dark as somebody who already has that increased amounts of melanin. Okay. And some of the stuff I'm saying is just what I already said. I'm just going to put in notes so that you have it. So everyone has about the same number of melanocytes. Okay. Now, we also talked about how melanin protects from UV light. And that's why suntans occur when you're sitting out in the sun. Yes, too much sun exposure without UV protection is bad for the skin. It can cause skin cancer. Think about it. One episode of a blistering sunburn, blistering skin, increases skin cancer percentage. And that's crazy because all you need is one time to increase your chance of getting skin cancer. That's how important, like studies have shown, that's how important having, like wearing sunscreen out in the sun is important. UV light is ultraviolet light, just in case you didn't know that. Now, so what happens? Like, why is too much sun without protection bad for the skin? Everything in moderation is good, okay? So in terms of sunlight, yeah, we need at least 15 minutes of protected sunlight to produce adequate amounts of vitamin D in our body, okay? So that's why you see vitamin D deficiencies in people who, in like nursing home patients and people who stay inside all the time. It's quite common. And that sunlight, you can get it through, windows too, in your house or in the car. But there are multiple types of skin cancer which develop when things go wrong, okay? One of them is known as multiple myeloma. So what is multiple myeloma? You probably have heard of it before. It's uncontrolled mitosis. So any kind of cancer is uncontrolled production of cells, okay, of certain types of cells, and that determines what kind of cancer the person may have. So in this case, it's uncontrolled mitosis of the melanocytes. Okay. Another type of cancer is basal cell carcinoma. And carcinoma pretty much means cancer. So what this is basal cell carcinoma is uncontrolled mitosis of cells in the stratum basal layer. Okay, and that's why, because of the basal layer, it's called basal cell carcinoma. And this is something, basal cell carcinoma is something that's curable by surgery. Okay. Now, there's something else called a squamous cell carcinoma. if I was there in person, I could show you pictures of these different types of cancer and show you what it looks like. And I can do that when I come back to, when we on class on Wednesday. So this is same thing, uncontrolled mitosis of the stratum spinosum layer of the skin. Okay. Okay. We'll get more into this on Wednesday when I come, and we'll talk a little bit more about hair and about the nails. And we'll go into like skin glands and start the skeletal system as well. Okay. If any of you have any questions, please just put it in the text and I'll answer it. Okay. See you Wednesday.